Human beings do not need a large pool of examples to know. We learn very quickly and efficiently from a handful of examples. Taking inspiration of how human beings learn, meta-learning attempts to automate traditional machine learning challenges. Our next session, Innovation in Education in Algorithm for Meta-Learning. For the same, let me introduce you to our luminaries, our speakers on the panel. We have with us the very renowned Dr. Abhay Jere, Chief Innovation Officer at the Ministry of Education, Government of India, the professor who believes in cutting-edge innovative pedagogies, Mr. Manish Jain from IIT Gandhinagar, known for his elite deliberation on the fourth industrial revolution. We welcome Professor M.M. Pant, former Pro-Vice Chancellor, IGNOU. I extend a hearty welcome to the moderators of the session who would take the discussion forward. The very eminent Dr. Arunabh Singh, Director, Nehru World School. Ms. Meenu Tiwari, Executive Member, NPSC and Principal, CRPF Public School, Dwarka, has kindly consented to be the coordinator of the session. Over to you. I'll request you to kindly unmute yourself.
Yeah. Hi. 2 years in and we are still being reminded for being unmuted. Some things don't change. Some things are not meta. But thank you very much for this very kind introduction. I understand what I have in front of us is a super challenge, not because of the topic we're discussing, but because we've got in front of us 3 people who are keynotes pretty much every day, and we're going to give them 12 minutes to summarize their thoughts for this session. So it's going to be quite a interesting exercise for the speakers, and let's see how many minutes they can share with the speaker after them. So just a housekeeping announcement. When I request you to speak, I'm going to take a note of the time on my phone. And when you finish, I will share with the speaker after you how many minutes you had left for them on the table. I understand the task ahead of you is difficult, but let's see how well you can do today. We're talking about the algorithm for meta-learning. I found out that in English, a total of 188 words start with meta, which is a Greek prefix which stands for after or beyond. And if there is one thing that is changing really fast is the phase of education. So from the first education age to the second, to the third, to the fourth. But the second, third, fourth has actually happened in this last century. So the rate of change is only increasing. So in this increasing rate of change, how will we as teachers and actually also as learners become relevant for the world that is in front of us? I think the dictionary is pointing me in the wrong direction when she says 188, because 199 is a metaverse, which perhaps wasn't even a word commonly used a year back. So let's hear from our luminaries of what do they think is the algorithm for meta-learning or algorithm for learning in a state of perpetual change. The first speaker that we have today is Dr. Abhay Jere, the Chief Innovation Officer at Ministry of Education. Quite a big responsibility in this time that is moving faster than ever. So what would be your initial inputs on this? Your 12 minutes start at 11:34. All yours.
Thank you, Arunabh. First, I would really like to congratulate. Hello, am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Yes, sir. Yes.
First, I would really like to congratulate NPSC for giving me this opportunity, inviting me on this panel. And I would like to, because I have 12 minutes, so I would like to put few thoughts which are very, very concrete in terms of innovation and entrepreneurship, which is what I am championing within the ministry. And you started, Anurag, with the metaverse, you know. I don't know how many of you have seen recently 26 January Jhaki, or Tableau, which actually Ministry of Education designed. And I was actually designing it. And our theme was Vedas to Metaverse, where we said that the new education policy, which we are now proposing, it was a new education policy. And where we said that the new education policy, which we are proposing right now, will be ingrained in our culture, in our ethos, but it will be equally relevant for creating human resource requirement of the 21st century. And that's the reason we actually went ahead. And innovation was big component of the entire Jhanki. And undoubtedly, we won the first prize for the best design and so on and so forth. But when we are talking about innovation, entrepreneurship, these certainly have become buzzwords. People are talking about it. But when it comes to educational institutions, especially schools, the concepts have not percolated beyond the point. And we need to together do every possible effort to ensure that these concepts get established, get percolate, so that the sustainable ecosystems gets established within our schools. For example, even if we ask our schools today that how they will define their success, they will talk about their passing percentage. Okay, so many people have passed, we had a 100% result, so many percentage of our students have scored more than 90% marks, and so on and so forth. So they will talk about credits, they will talk about marks, they will talk about academics in that context. None of the school will tell us that we have filed so many patents. So what we are doing, or we have published so many papers, or we have put out so many concepts. So what we are trying to do still is that schools are chasing marks and grades. They are not chasing new ideas. And that needs to change. We really need to push our teachers, our policymakers, managements of schools to actually get into that mindset. Anurag, I know your school is doing something very radical and promoting entrepreneurship. Hats off to you. But that model needs to go beyond one school. It needs to get democratized. Because it's not that we are not generating ideas. Our students are not creative. But who are killing ideas? If we ask very honestly, we can still very safely say that parents and elders at home and teachers in schools. Because if anyone asks you an intelligent question, you are snubbed back, saying that Baba marks kitna mila, idhar udhar ki baatein mat kar, badi baatein mat kar, that kind of. So we really need to actually ensure that that mindset change has to happen. And for that, we are doing multiple initiatives through Ministry of Education. Recently, we have started training of 50,000 CBSE school teachers as innovation ambassadors. Because if we have to promote innovation, they need to understand what are the dimensions associated with it. So there is one very big module on design thinking, critical thinking, problem solving. There is a module on IPR management. What is IPR? How to file it? What are the different types of IPR? How to handhold an idea at pre-incubation level, incubation level. How to create a business plan. How to register a startup. What are the financial aspects related to startup or entrepreneurship? And I'm very happy to share with you that more than 10,000 teachers have completed this module currently. And within next 2.5 months, we hope that
Oh, you seem to have lost, sir. Is it just me who can't hear him, or nobody can hear him?
I think we have lost him.
I think he's lost connection.
Yeah, he's lost
None of us
connection.
can hear.
Right. Okay. In which case, let's be meta about our journey and change the sequence of events. If he's able to join in, we would request him to do his closing remarks. And I would want to go to Professor Manish Jain. Professor Jain was hoping to come live in another 5 minutes. But Professor Manish Jain, can you hear me?
I'm ready. I was just wondering, and I talked to Sudha ma'am also, if you could just make my whatever the small window that I see bigger one, like a spotlight.
Sure.
Yeah, I have told the tech platform, they're just trying.
They will do it, but not before I get my fanboy moment.
Sure.
I've had the privilege of seeing Professor Manish Jain work alongside students for 3 days, 3 long days, what appeared to me like long days, but the students just did not want to leave. The manner in which he has gamified mathematics is not just noteworthy, it is many books worthy, and we are a legend. Okay. Professor Jain, if you allow us, we'll let Dr. Jere finish his 5 minutes and then come back to you.
No.
Sure. Change is the only constant. Sir, we lost you, so we thought we'll move on, but now we'll come back.
Okay, I can come back later if Manish is talking and if it is.
He hasn't started yet, so we still have time. So you have 3 minutes left.
Okay, sounds good.
Sure.
So that is another big program which we have launched, which we are calling Innovation Ambassador Program. Did you hear about the program where I spoke about it? Yeah.
Yes.
We have
Now
all
we are
joined.
working with CBLC also very closely to launch an elective on design thinking from 6th standard, because our students are not emerging as problem solvers. Recently, we did our study where we compared problem solving ability of our students with students from Russia and China. And Stanford University did the study for us. And what we saw was that our students are great when it comes to theory. When parroting a thing, they're very good. But if you ask those students to apply what they have learned and solve a problem, they fumble. The condition in schools is far worse as compared to what we see in higher education, especially engineering. Means our engineers are also not in par with international standards, but still schools are far below par. So this swallow and vomit kind of an education system which we have evolved over a period of time is actually killing the creativity, killing the ideation part of it. And students are not encouraged by the ecosystem around them to actually chase ideas. And that's what we really need to change. I will share 2 very good examples which we actually did with students and we got phenomenal results. One was Toycothon, which we recently arranged, where we went to our students, school students, college students, and told them, can you design toys for Indian market and for international market, which are based on Indian ethos and Indian culture? More than 17,000 teams we got. And when we looked at the quality of toys which they had designed, the concepts which they had put out, based on completely Indian culture, they were phenomenal. Many of them have resurrected some of the old lost toys, not only just in a cardboard format or paper format or mechatronics format, but also completely on digital format. Like Wagh Bakri game, which was played in Himachal Pradesh, where there are 4 tigers and 28 bakris and they have to move. We had lost that. Nobody now plays that. They came up with a digital version of it. Something really, it was phenomenal. And when we showcased all these things to our Honorable Prime Minister, he was so thrilled because These are the ideas which have niche, which we can take across the globe. Manish works very closely on toys. He's one of the best in this sector and he can speak more on it. But before I conclude, I don't know what were the discussions earlier, but the way personalized learning is emerging is offering a huge opportunity in terms of pedagogy. Because we recently came up with a scheme called NEAT, N-E-A-T, National Education Alliance on Technology. Currently, we are focusing on higher education, but yes, we are going to go for school education also soon. And what we did during that is that we wanted to identify edtech companies which are using AI/ML, real deep AI/ML approach for teaching. And we identified about 48 such companies which were in personalized learning. So their platforms were actually judging the competency, the level of student, his ability to grasp, his ability to absorb, and design the entire teaching session accordingly. And the kind of platforms which we are seeing, which are emerging, and these are quite deep tech platforms. It's something really very amazing. And I believe moving forward, there is going to be this hybrid mode where we will have in school or in class actually physical pedagogy or physical learning, but also we are just not going to use Zoom or Google Meets, but we are going to use these personalized digital tools, personalized learning tools to explain the concepts, to interact with students. We are also going to have a lot of projects-based learning, and that is actually going to give push to ideation and innovation. And during the subsequent next session, I will talk about story of Yuvraj Bharadwaj and Yashraj Bharadwaj, who have now actually did something really phenomenal, and how they started from 6th standard. They filed their patent in 8th standard, how they sold their patent for $1.1 million. And now they are 21 years old, these twins. They have a company which has a revenue of $80 million spread across 4 countries and actually employing scientists.
That's fantastic, sir. We look forward to hearing more about
so
that.
I will do that. So we can, we will continue this discussion. So thanks for giving me opportunity, Anurag. And I hope I've kept my time.
You almost kept your time, sir. But then you had a technical snag as well. So we'll let you go easy this time. But one thing I already gathered from this was you were talking about intelligent questions or deep questions. And as you were talking about that, I remembered being inside a classroom, a 6th grade teacher in a regular school teaching, and she'd finished that lesson that time when I was there. And rather than asking questions to children, she pointed to the Bloom's taxonomy poster in the class and said, now all of you are going to create questions that can be answered from memory, by understanding, by analysis, by evaluation, or by creativity. And I understood sitting there, I had goosebumps, that this is a teacher who in social studies in grade 6 is enabling children to think and think deeper. And as she was doing what she was doing, I could only think of the kind of pressure that a physics teacher has to make children think. And if you have a boring physics class, if you have a boring maths class, then this is blasphemous. Let us see how Professor Manish Jain talks to us about doing mathematics and making it super interesting. Thank you, Dr. Jerry. Mr. Manish Jain, your 12 minutes start now at 11:50.
Yeah, I just would thanks Arunab. I was just great, wonderful. Thank you so much. Absolute pleasure, madam. आचार्य मैडम, थैंक यू फॉर कॉलिंग मी हियर. और आपने मुझे वो जो 12 मिनट का समय दिया, उसमें से मैं 1 मिनट शुरू में आभार में ही खत्म कर दूंगा. बट सच में मुझे बहुत अच्छा लग रहा है। 35 लोग जो मुझे यहाँ पर 35 लोग जो है, द बेस्ट थिंग अबाउट दिस इंटरनेट में वर्कशॉप करने का कि जब भी आप बोलो तो पीछे से आर्टिफिशियल वो तालियां सुनाई दे जाती है, खूब सारी, लगता है बहुत बढ़िया आपने कुछ बात कह दी। सो विच इज ग्रेट। आई मीन किसी का मन नहीं कर रहा होगा यहाँ बैठने का, लेकिन तालियां बज जाएंगी और हमारा भी यू नो व्हाटएवर। सो आई लाइक दैट। थैंक यू सो मच। बिना कुछ बोले तालियां बज गई। थैंक यू सो मच, एब्सोल्यूट प्लेजर। आई विश आई वाज एक्चुअली कॉलिंग मैडम टू से यार ये असली में दिल्ली में करा होता तो कम से कम देखने का तो मौका मिलता, चाय पीने का मौका मिलता। बट यू नो इट इज सो, आई एम सो ग्लैड दैट दिस इज हैपनिंग। आई वाज रियली होपिंग दैट वी विल हैव इट इन पर्सन. But I really wanted to communicate just one slide, and let me just take you there. This is me. I am calling from IIT Gandhinagar, and this is where our lab is. And the goal for our lab is to make sure that we can make learning engaging and inspiring. और goal सिर्फ ये है, किसी तरह से आंखों में हमारी ये एक सेकेंड, ये हमारा ये कुछ, हाँ अब दिख रहा है. Goal for what we do in our lab in IIT Gandhinagar is to bring back that gleam in the eyes of our children. And let me show you what is it that I'm talking about. एक मेरी slide है यहाँ पर. मैं आपको ये बताना चाह रहा हूँ कि these are the 3 things that we would want. And I think this is what we learned by doing this program, which was called 30-30 STEM in the last summer. और हमें ये 3 बातें समझ आई और मुझे लगा ये सबसे जरूरी है शिक्षा में अगर हमें कुछ फेरबदल करना है, जिसके बारे में ये अभी अभय बात कर रहे थे ना कि बच्चों को समझ नहीं आता है, लेकिन कहीं पर स्टैनफोर्ड ने कुछ टेस्ट कराया और पता चल गया। हमारे बच्चों को अगर बोलें, हमारे बच्चों से मतलब अगर हम लोग बोलें कि डेंसिटी की परिभाषा बताओ तो अपन तुरंत बता देंगे मास बाय वॉल्यूम या वेट बाय वॉल्यूम। इनफैक्ट वी विल फाइट दैट इट इज नॉट वेट बाय वॉल्यूम बट मास बाय वॉल्यूम एंड वाइस वर्सा। बट अगर हम बोले कि 100 रुपए किलो लोहा खरीदना है या 100 रुपए लीटर लोहा खरीदना है तो हम सब लोग 100 रुपए किलो ले आएंगे और 8 गुना लुट जाएंगे। We will buy 8 kgs less by buying it 100 rupees a kg and not 100 rupees a liter. Similarly, अगर तेल खरीदने को बोलेंगे तो हम 100 रुपए लीटर ले आएंगे और वहां पर भी लुट जाएंगे। Because we have never used density in our lives. If we buy iron by the liter, we get 8 times more. If we buy oil by the kg, we get more, and which is non-intuitive. And I think that is what we have to sort of try to get into our education to make the learning more experiential, engaging, and hence इंस्पायरिंग। तो मैं जो आपको ये चीज दिखाना चाह रहा था वो ये है, मुझे लगता है 3 पिलर्स ऑफ आवर एजुकेशन हैव टू बी दिस। पहला धमाल। आई डोंट नो कितने लोगों ने पिक्चर देखी है, इट्स नॉट लाइक आई एम प्रमोटिंग बॉलीवुड, बट मुझे लगता है जब बच्चे क्लास में आए या बच्चे कॉलेज में जहां पर भी जाएं तो पहला मजा आया कि नहीं, अच्छा लगा कि नहीं, मजा आया कि नहीं क्लास में। दूसरा, कोर्स कवर हुआ कि नहीं। 12 मिनट में अरुणाब ने मुझे बोला अपनी बात रखो, तो मुझे अपनी बात रखनी चाहिए। आई हैव टू फिनिश द टॉपिक और डू समथिंग अबाउट इट। दैट इज तारे जमीन पर। एंड वन ऑफ द मोस्ट इंपॉर्टेंट थिंग दैट वी विल हैव टू डू इज 3 इडियट्स। कहीं पर हमारी भावना, ये एक्चुअली टाइटल थोड़ा सा बदल गया है, ये भावना इधर होनी चाहिए और समझ को इधर आना चाहिए, बट आई विल फिक्स द स्लाइड लेटर, सॉरी अबाउट दैट। तो 3 इडियट्स, कहीं ना कहीं वो बात दिल को छुई कि नहीं छुई। Something, whatever that I wanted to do, somewhere did the 1 hour that I spent in the class, did it touch my heart? दिल तक, दिमाग तक तो बात गई, लेकिन दिल तक बात जाती है कि नहीं, वो बहुत जरूरी है। उतना ही जरूरी जितना पढ़ाना, उतना ही जरूरी जितना मजा लेना। एंड दैट इज व्हाट आई थिंक आर 3 things that I learned by doing this program 30-30 STEM, which actually reached out to पीपीटी। हाँ, ये मैं आपको एक स्लाइड में दिखाना चाह रहा हूँ कि जो हमने ये जो प्रोग्राम करा था, this was something that we did, and last summer we were able to reach out to about 1 crore people with 5 lakh teachers who engaged online with 1000 plus activities. इस तरह की चीजें थी ये जो खिलौने हमने बनाए। These were all the things that we have done over the last 4-5 years. This is what we showcased in 30-30 STEM. मैं जल्दी कर रहा हूँ कि अरुणाब का डंडा है मेरे ऊपर, and so I'm sort of trying to rush, and you might find it a very rushed talk, but sorry, I can't help it. But this is the program that I was talking about. Here you see what we were doing was the art of a machine, mathematics in cards, mathematics in calendar, mathematical lamps and in vegetables. The other things that you see, mysteries of cricket, all of these things that happen around us, but maths and science in there. And I just wanted to share this feedback that this program we did every Sunday. And somebody who was a cricket fan said he likes 30-30 more than 20-20 IPL. Somebody else was saying that this feels like Ramayan. हर हफ्ते हमें इसका इंतजार रहता है जैसे। और होता क्या है, उद्देश्य सिर्फ ये था, ये आपको शायद यहाँ पर देखकर समझ आ जाए। This is something that we shot in Himachal Pradesh, Palanpur. This is a 2 paisa toy, and I'll show you in a minute. This works like a flute, whistle, and flute, whistle, and sprinkler all in one. और ये हमारी लैब में एक 6 साल का बच्चा आया था, उसके साथ प्रयोग है. क्यों? गिरनी है कि नहीं गिरनी? गिरनी चाहिए ना. अगर आप फूट नहीं मार रहे हैं तो देखिए. कल आप
ऐसे बहुत सारे इंटरेस्टिंग खिलौनों को बनाने के लिए, चलाने के लिए और उनसे रिलेटेड.
Sorry, I'll just cut that thing off. But that is what we are trying to do, to create toys which can make. एक और बात अभय कर रहे थे कि सोचने की, आई थिंक ऐसे सवाल हमें अपनी कक्षाओं में देने पड़ेंगे, ऐसी चीजों के बारे में बात करनी पड़ेगी जो दिमाग की बत्ती जला दे, रात भर नींद ना आए. मैं उसका एक उदाहरण देता हूं छोटा सा, एंड देन आई विल स्टॉप माय टॉक. आई डोंट नो, मैं ओवरहेड में ले जाकर दिखाता हूं. बहुत ही सरल खेल है, ये अभी 3 दिन पहले ही बना है, और मैं चाह रहा था क्योंकि एक नया खेल बनाया है तो मैं आपके सामने ये शेयर कर पाऊं. एक साधारण सा गोला है, इसमें हमने 12 हुक्स लगाए हैं और हमने बोला कि भाई 4-4 छोड़कर रस्सी बनाओ तो ये त्रिकोण बन जाता है. 3 छोड़कर बनाओ तो चौकोन बन जाता है. 4 छोड़कर बनाओ तो त्रिकोण बन जाता है, और 2 छोड़कर बनाओ तो षटकोण बन जाता है. लेकिन अगर 5 छोड़कर बनाएंगे तो ये पूरी तरह से बनेगा ही नहीं. एंड इनफैक्ट अगर आप 13 वाले में ये करेंगे तो कभी नहीं बनेगा. क्यों? क्योंकि 13 is a prime number. Of course, we will not tell that 13 is a prime number, but if you have this thing which has 13 holes and you try to wrap around, आप चाहे 2 छोड़कर करिए, चाहे 3 छोड़कर करिए, चाहे 4 छोड़कर करिए, चाहे 5, कुछ भी छोड़कर करिए, आप बना ही नहीं सकते कोई पॉलीगन. And let children explore, and then you come to the conclusion there is something magical about this number 13, and that is why it is called a prime number. Similarly, अगर 12 लेंगे तो 2 और 3 और 4 में आपकी बढ़िया चीजें बनेंगी, लेकिन 5 में नहीं बनेगी, because 3 and 5 are relatively prime and things like that. And then we went on more, और उसी को हमने 8 को इसमें जोड़ दिया, इसमें एडिशन कर दिया. ये हमारा जोड़ है. अगर किसी भी गोले में वही 10 नंबर जोड़ के कर दिए तो ये गोला बन जाता है. 2 का पहाड़ा सुनाया, दिस इज द पावर ऑफ 2. 2 का पहाड़ा जो हम रटवाते हैं, उसको करने से दिल बन जाता है. दिस शेप कम्स आउट व्हेन यू डू द टेबल ऑफ 2. टेबल ऑफ 3, a heart with 2 lobes. Table of 4, heart with 3 lobes. Now imagine we are mugging these things up, and the whole thing is that the whole toy, this whole series, I can do it in grade 3 and I can do it in grade 15. Engineering में पहले सेमेस्टर में हम पढ़ा सकते हैं कि why is it that 3 lobes come around when I do this power of 3, not power of 3, the table of 3 or 4, things like that. So that is what I am talking about. I'm saying that in our classes, in our education, this hands-on experience is absolute must. मजा आना चाहिए, कोर्स कवर होना चाहिए, और तीसरा कहीं ना कहीं वो बात दिल को छू जाए. Somewhere it should touch my heart. आज आप इस टॉक में आए, 12 घंटे आपने मेरा भाषण सुना, आपको ये लगे हाँ क्या सोच कर आए थे, क्या होगा. And that is what I am talking about. मैं एक और Arunab, if you permit me, I have many toys, but this is sort of one of my favorite. You have a table, right? And this is something, these are the kind of things that I want to share with every single student across the country. और इसके लिए कोई बहुत मोटा पैसा जरूरत भी नहीं है. भारत सरकार से कोई अनुदान नहीं मांगना पड़ेगा आपको. एक टेबल है, टेबल पे 3 बच्चे बैठे हैं, अचानक एक और बच्चा आ गया, क्या करें? हमने टेबल बदल दी, अब 4 बच्चे बैठ सकते. वो त्रिकोण का चौकोन बन गया. एक बच्चा वापस चला गया, अब हमने वापस से त्रिकोण. ये असली में टेबल बन सकती है, हमने बनाई है. The question then one can ask, अच्छा, which is what Abhay was talking about. I think these are the kind of questions we'll have to give to our students. कहां पर ये लाइन खींचें, किस तरह से ये करें कि ऐसा पॉसिबल हो जाए. क्या षटकोण में कर सकते हैं? हमने षटकोण के लिए करा, चौकोण के लिए करा, त्रिकोण के लिए करा. आप और किसी चीज के लिए करिए. These are the kind of things that engage and inspire, something that we have been trying to do. और वही चीज को मैं आपको आगे 1 मिनट में दिखाना चाह रहा था. कहाँ चली गई मेरे पास? Arnab, this is the last thing that I'm going to show, and with that I'll end.
Sure, sir.
और ये ओवरहेड है आप सभी लोगों के लिए. एक्चुअली बड़ी इंटरेस्टिंग चीज है. मुझे लगता है एडल्ट्स ही बैठे हैं यहाँ पर, बच्चे नहीं हैं, तो उनके लिए तो बहुत ज्यादा काम आएगी. और सवाल क्या था And I'm trying to convey something very interesting. We read this very interesting theorem in mathematics, maybe in grade 10 or 11, that the slice of a sphere, a volume of a slice of a sphere is independent of, you know, the radius of the sphere and things like that. मतलब whatever. तो बड़ा मुश्किल सा कुछ confusing लगता है. कल्पना करिए, आपकी सबकी शादी हो गई है, आपको अपने हस्बैंड के लिए या वाइफ के लिए सोने का कुछ गहना खरीद कर देना है. आपके पास 3 चॉइसेस हैं. आप कंगन दे सकते हैं, कंगन बोल रहा हूं, या कड़ा, अंगूठी दे सकते हैं, या एक ये गोला दे सकते हैं. कंगन दे सकते हैं, अंगूठी दे सकते हैं, या फिर ये गोला है जो लॉकेट में लग जाता है, ये दे सकते हैं. कौन सा देंगे ताकि आपकी सबसे ज्यादा बचत हो जाए, मतलब आपको सबसे कम पैसे खर्च करने पड़े? 3 में से कौन सी चीज देंगे? कंगन देंगे, चूड़ी देंगे कि गोला देंगे? एंड व्हाट आई वांटेड टू कन्वे वाज दैट इट डजंट एक्चुअली मैटर. All these 3 things have exactly the same volume. This is the same thing, same theorem that I am talking about, because they are all part of a sphere. एक गोले के अंदर हमने अगर सेम ऊंचाई का छेद करा है तो सबका वॉल्यूम बराबर है. तो आप अपने हस्बैंड को कोई भी गिफ्ट दें, आपके उतने ही पैसे खर्च करेंगे. Point that I am trying to convey is that same theorem when we are talking about with something physical, something that every child can relate to or every adult can relate to, suddenly things become very interesting. By the way, when I looked at this theorem, मुझे तो बहुत मजा आया था देखकर. किसी भी गोले में कहीं पर भी छिलका आप काट लो, स्लाइस काट दो, वॉल्यूम सेम रहता है. मतलब this is just super amazing. I actually also feel that the most interesting things in the curriculum are outside of the textbooks, and so somewhere we'll have to sort of look at beyond, something beyond the curriculum, or maybe get the beyond thing inside the curriculum, whichever way. And that is what we have been trying to do with this small experiment in IIT Gandhinagar, which is called Center for Creative Learning. This is what the program was about. This is what the program was about, which we did last summer, every Sunday, 30 STEM.
Sir, how I wish that this session was planned for the entire day. I truly do.
I understand that, and I am just showing you this last picture. This is the picture that we took in Chhattisgarh. This is what we are trying to achieve. This is the gleam that I'm talking about. This is the gleam in the eyes of our children that I'm talking about. And in my opinion, that can happen only if and only we try to make our classes more interesting. 3 idiots. Not that I am promoting Amir Khan, but I really believe that I think we'll have to talk to not just the heads but the hearts also. So thank you so much, Arunab, for the time. Thank you, Acharya ma'am, for giving me the opportunity to come and speak. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Indeed an honor to listen to you once again. और आप बात कर रहे थे बच्चों के सवालों की, बच्चों के सपनों की, तो मुझे अपनी छोटी 5 साल की बेटी याद आ गई. मुझसे एक दिन पूछती है, पापा, व्हाट इज दैट वन थिंग दैट ओनली यू कैन सी एंड नो वन एल्स? तो मैंने पूछा, अच्छा क्या? कहती, पापा, योर ड्रीम्स, ओनली यू कैन सी देम. तो आप जब बोलते हैं तो आपका सपना साकार होता हुआ दिखता है.
कल मैं ना चश्मा लगा के सो रहा था, तो मेरी वाइफ ने बोला, यार क्यों सो रहे हो चश्मा लगा के, क्या पता ज्यादा बेहतर सपने दिखे तो.
जी, तो आपने बोला कि भाई ये 33-34 लोग यहाँ सुन रहे हैं. वो एक्चुअली 33-34 लोग नहीं सुन रहे हैं, ये कम से कम डायरेक्टली तो 1 लाख बच्चे सुन रहे हैं. क्योंकि ये जो लोग हैं, अगर मैं मैथमेटिक्स से उसमें 3000 का एवरेज लगा दूं तो 1 लाख बच्चे हो जाते हैं. और अगर मैं प्रोफेसर डॉक्टर अभय जेरे के नंबर लगा दूं तो अब ये 25 करोड़,
पूरा देश.
तो ये 25 करोड़ तो वो हो गए जो कि स्कूल में हैं, और उसके बाद में वो जो कॉलेज में है. तो ये तो बहुत बड़ी अपॉर्चुनिटी हम लोगों के साथ में थी. I sincerely hope to listen to you again. I want to go to Professor M.M. Pant. While sir is speaking, in the audience, if there are questions, please put them in the chat box. My colleague, Ms. Tiwari, she is going to be taking on the question part. Some questions we've already received, so she has some of those. And she'll be doing the questions and the closing remarks. Again, Professor M.M. Pant does not need an introduction. I've had the opportunity of listening to him several times over the last decade and a half that I've been in education. Sir is a former Pro-Vice Chancellor of IGNOU and Professor of Computational Physics. While he's been speaking to school leaders for a very long time. And every time he speaks, I get amused with how is he so up to date. He was up to date and ahead 15 years back when I first listened to him. And I'm sure he'd surprise us once again today. Professor Pant, your 12 minutes would start at 12:05. The stage is all yours. Thank you.
So thank you, Anna, for this introduction. But I'm actually in a situation where I want to listen to the speakers who have been speaking before. It's so exciting, and I'd like to connect to them. And so, like what Abhay said, he talked about personalization of learning. And you were talking about the future. I went to the past. In 1970s at IIT Kanpur as a faculty, I actually adopted this technique called Keller Plan, mastery learning, etc., for personalization of learning, because it was a batch of 25 students. And I created completely separate quizzes for them, because you couldn't give the same quiz to everybody else. So the Keller Plan, mastery learning, Bloom's, all this is already there. What is interesting now, as he said, is that now EdTech companies can make this available to everyone. There I was especially excited about doing it. I went out and manually, there were no computers at that time also. PCs were not there, etc., and so on. The other thing I found very interesting was when Manish talked about density. And it got me back even, I think, maybe 50 years or 55 years to the past, because when in school I learned density, it was mass upon value, mass upon volume. And we did all kinds of calculations, as he said, mass is given, volume is given, this, that. But then in the geography book, there was a chapter called density of population. And I was wondering, how would they weigh all the people in the population? Counting the people was understandable, but how will they weigh them and how will they find the volume of everybody before they can find the density? And this is what is very interesting, that we have to talk about concept. The density is opposite of sparseness. And once you have that concept, even when you're talking about matrices, you can talk about dense matrices, sparse matrices, etc., etc. So it has been a very entertaining session for me. I am aware of always the shortage of time. So I put up many articles around these things on social media. I have a blog post at mmpant.com. You can go through Twitter, you can go to LinkedIn, Facebook, everywhere. But let me try to put it in a summary. From my perspective, there are three major mega trends in education that are happening. One is from education for a few, we're talking of educating everybody. This is a big trend. Earlier, the idea was you deserved an education or you were privileged to an education, you can buy an education or whatever it was for the few. And as somebody referred to the earlier revolutions, the first three education revolutions were all about still this. So this is one big change that has happened. The second thing has happened is from a finite years of schooling to lifelong learning. So far we said, for some people, matric pass was enough. Some people, graduation was enough. People like us went all the way to PhD, etc. But now we are talking of lifelong learning as something for all. And the third thing that has happened is from learning subjects, it is becoming about learning to learn. And this has been said in our new education policy as well, that learning to learn is the main thing, which Guy Claxton, in a sense, talks about as learning power. Now, why I'm saying this is because this now puts the essential features of the theme of your conference today, which is about bridging the gap on sustainable and inclusive learning. Now, if you look at the SDG Goal 4, there are 10 identified there. And it ranges all the way from schooling, preschooling, vocational training, etc., and so on. It talks about infrastructure and so on and so forth. Now, why this is very important is that they were signed in 2015. We are halfway through. 2030 is the goal. We are halfway through, and we are nowhere meeting those goals. If you have recently heard of the figures of 20,000 people studying medicine in Uzbekistan, what were we doing for 7 years of having signed all these things? We had agreed to it. It's not forced upon you. So one thing is very clear that, and you can see as many reports as you want, that we are nowhere near achieving these goals. Now, you can blame it to the COVID, you can blame it to the Ukraine war, you can blame it to whatever, but there are fundamental reasons why we can't do it. And I want to draw your attention to that and also to point out the solution. So I'll give a story. Many of you, because in fact, all of you are in computing, therefore you know that in the US, when the Constitution was created, they created a mandatory thing that every 10 years there will be a census. and representation will be decided on the basis of the census and everything will happen. They started from 1775, went on every 10 years or so. But in the 1880 census, they realized that it was already 1888 and they were nowhere near making all the tables, etc., that were required to process the data. And then it is that Herman Hollerith's punch card which came in. And then, as you know, the IBM company came in and the data processing was done within that time. What am I trying to draw? What I'm saying is, just like the US census mandate led to the development of computers and data processing, the mandate of SDG Goal 4 and our desire for education for all, reaching out to everybody, will force us to what was said as a byline, center stage, artificial intelligence in learning. Now, artificial intelligence will do that transformation, which the punch card and paper tapes and magnetic tapes, etc., did for data processing. And this is a very, very important thing. So we don't have to see it at the fringes. We have to have it at the core. And any solution for India or the world which does not leverage AI at the core is obviously not going to be a remediable solution in time. I mean, if you want to achieve those targets. There's another very interesting thing. Those of us who are familiar with computers know that before 1950s, computer was a descriptor of a human who did the calculations. So scientists wanted calculations to be done for whatever, including defense, artillery, trajectories, etc., etc. Now, since Manish is here, you might say, okay, even if you want to calculate a simple area, you'll say what? Area is pi r square, but pi is not 22/7 as in textbooks. If you are going to talk of an area of thousands of miles or thousands of square kilometers, and every kilometer has a significant value, you need pi to a better place than this. And therefore, you need to know all the infinite series, etc., do on calculating till the required accuracy that you have. So there was a whole bunch of people called computers whose job was to calculate. And when the first automatic computers came in 1950s, their computer results were verified by the human computers, whether that machine is doing it correctly or wrong, because the humans are more trustworthy than the machines. In due course, today, if you ask a young child computer, he assumes it's a machine. The same thing will happen for teachers. The teacher who stands in front of the class, gives a prescribed curriculum, etc., will be displaced. You will either have, in fact, many of you must have seen your children talking to Alexa and Siri and getting all the answers, etc. Very often I show in my demonstration that what I'm saying, I ask Alexa, what is quantum computing? And Alexa gives you the answer. What is quantum entanglement? And Alexa gives you the answer. So the whole point of merely giving information, etc., will change. And as we've been saying, you have to make sure that. So what I'm saying is the so-called teachers will turn out to be cognitive learning facilitators, cognitive development facilitators. And the future, therefore, is going to be about autonomous learners powered by AI and held by human cognitive development facilitators. We use the word algorithm in the title, and what is going to change is that we are going to use learning algorithms for this. Now, learning algorithm is very well defined in a book in 1957 by Thomas Mitchell. It says a learning algorithm for a given task T with performance measure P is such that the performance measure P improves with experience E. This is a very interesting thing and very precise definition to tell you what AI can do and what AI cannot do. And although this book was written in 1997, even in the 2015 book on deep learning by Joshua Bengio and Ian Goodfellow and Cover, the same thing has been talked about. And educators have a very important role in this. So I'll conclude by referring to The Fourth Education Revolution, which is a book by Anthony Seldon. It's a very good book, and it says the first three revolutions in the entire millions of years of human history, only three education revolutions happened. The fourth is taking shape, and what is very important is that unlike what we are kind of trying to say, edtech companies will do it, he says it is the educators which must take part in it. Educators must drive the fourth education revolution, creating all these models of AI and machine learning, not wait for some edtech company driven by profit. Just like in many institutions, educators have taken the lead. And in fact, IIT Kanpur was an example where we did all kinds of innovations ourselves. We did not say somebody else will do the innovation and we will simply buy that innovation. That is what we need to do. And a forum like NPSC is a great one to exhort all educators to take part in that AI revolution, not be passive receivers of it. They will create the personalized learning system, will be created by human beings. Machines will assist them in doing their laborious routine work faster. So with this, all I'm saying is the future is AI-driven autonomous learning supported by cognitive development facilitators. Let us not reduce the teacher to a newsreader. The teacher is a cognitive developer, teaches you to think, take different versions, different perspectives, take contradictory perspectives. One of the training that I really enjoy is take one position and then take exactly the opposite position and do both of them convincingly. So I hope this will lead to something very interesting and we will genuinely become a leader in the. I just want to conclude by saying that there are apps like Duolingo, Think for Math, etc., which are doing this. And there was an app developed a few years ago for Malawi, one of the poorest countries in the world, which is the maths app for teaching maths to elementary children. And in UK now, it is being adopted. So the point, if we really want to do this reverse transfer, we develop the stuff and then the rest of the world also takes it. We can use the same marketing companies to do the marketing, but educators should be the leaders because you cannot create that. If you're going to be just a receiver of that, then you are going to be displaced also. Thank you. All the best.
Thank you so much, sir. Before I go to what I want to say, I didn't think this was possible to have 3 people who can do 3-hour-long keynotes to summarize their thoughts in 12 minutes. I'm once again impressed. Thank you for keeping time. When you were talking about your 3 pillars, sir, I figured that you're talking about democratization of metacognition in perpetuity.
Yes.
And if we can get there as a country, then we are a country that is a knowledge economy. And that perhaps is where the NCF is attempting to go. So thank you very much for pointing us in this direction once again. And as you were sharing what you were sharing, I saw Professor Manish Jain's hand go up several times, like that child who has the answer, but the teacher's not asking yet. So I want to give him the mic again. We have some 4 minutes that we can come back.
I didn't want to ask. I mean, of course, you added that right कि बच्चे की तरह हाथ उठाता रहता है, but हाथ में इसलिए नहीं उठा रहा था, वो बारी-बारी कानपुर की बातें कर रहे थे, कानपुर में ये और कानपुर में वो. So I went back, maybe 30 years ago when I first went to IIT Kanpur for 4 years and had the best time of my life. But one thing that he was saying that teachers, Professor Pant, जब आप बात कर रहे थे ना कि टीचर, मुझे लगता है और मुझे हमेशा गुप्ता जी की ये बात हमेशा याद रही और रहती है. अरविंद गुप्ता जिनके साथ मैंने 2 साल काम करा पुणे.
हाँ, ये टॉयज वाले.
हाँ, और वो भी कानपुर के ही थे. और
हाँ, पर पुणे में है, अभी तो पुणे में है ना.
उन्होंने मुझे अपने यहाँ रख भी लिया. हाँ, मतलब बिना तनख्वाह के बेरोजगारी पर रख लिया अपने यहाँ. But what I was trying to say was that he had this very interesting thing, and I think that is what has been stuck in my mind, right? टीचर का मतलब वो कहते थे मनीष, गधों और ट्रेनिंग तो गधों और खच्चरों की होती है, इंसानों को सिर्फ प्रेरित किया जा सकता है. So one of the most interesting things that a teacher can and should mostly focus on is inspiring. वॉल्टर लुविन मुझसे अच्छी फिजिक्स पढ़ाएगा यार, वो इंटरनेट पे पढ़ा हुआ है, लेकिन वॉल्टर लुविन इंस्पायर नहीं कर सकता. उसके लिए एक साधारण हार मास का आदमी या औरत चाहिए सामने. And that is absolutely, I totally believe that, right? वो आप ऑनलाइन नहीं करा सकते.
नहीं, मैंने उसके लिए थोड़ा टेक्निकल टर्म यूज किया, कॉग्निटिव डेवलपमेंट फैसिलिटेटर.
और आएगा एंड
नहीं, बिल्कुल, एब्सोल्युटली.
Couldn't agree more that computers are not going to replace teachers, but teachers who use computing effectively may replace those who don't. ये पैंडेमिक ने हमें बहुत अच्छी तरह से सिखाया कि एक टीचर बहुत दूर तक के बच्चों को से बात कर पाए, और जिन्होंने टेक्नोलॉजी नहीं अडॉप्ट करी वो अपने साथ वाले घर के बच्चे तक भी नहीं पहुंच पाए.
और
मुझे लग रहा है कि
0 और 1 की बात कर रहे थे, वो कंप्यूटर में जो IBM ने पहला, ये हमने एक खिलौना बनाया था 0 और 1 को इस्तेमाल करके. ये जिस तरह से पंच कार्ड चलते हैं उसी तरह से एक खेल है. पूरी रामायण इस पे सॉर्ट हो जाती है, या ABCD या चीजें तिल्ली डालकर.
और अब आपको क्यूबिट और क्वांटम वो समझाना पड़ेगा, ब्लॉक स्फीयर समझाना पड़ेगा, सब कुछ खेल के माध्यम समझाना पड़ेगा, बिकॉज this generation has to be a quantum ready generation.
I couldn't agree more, sir. I want to pass the baton to Miss Meenu Tiwari. She's anxiously waiting. वो हाथ नहीं खड़े कर पा रही हैं मनीष जी के जैसे, मगर she is also anxiously waiting to put forward the question that she's received. So I request ma'am to please take the baton forward and ask the questions and also close with her thanking remarks eventually. I personally loved moderating this panel. I hope that I get to do this again in person, because वो जो हार्ड मास के आदमी की बात आप कर रहे थे, वो जब कंधे पे हाथ रखने की अपॉर्चुनिटी मिलती है और बच्चे से कनेक्शन होता है, वो टेक्नोलॉजी अभी नहीं कर पा रही है, कभी नहीं कर पाएगी ये मुझे पता नहीं, मगर अभी तो नहीं कर पा रही है. मीनू जी, ऑल योर्स.
Thank you, Dr. Anurag. Since we have such a renowned panel of experts who are working very closely in bringing culture of innovation in the school system, we would like to ask as many questions as possible within this limited time. So straight away, starting with the questions, my first question is to Dr. Abhay Jaire. Sir, we have read about the Atal Innovation Ranking Framework for ranking all education institutions on innovation achievements and about your remarkable contribution to Atal innovation. How do you think this may help to promote an inclusive and equitable quality of education, which is also one of the SDG goal? I think it is goal number 4. Over to Ajay sir, please.
So as Pant sir was saying, or as Manish was saying, we have to go beyond our textbooks. And if we have to go beyond our textbooks, then we have to get into innovative ways of pedagogy. Okay. And when we are looking into Atal rankings, which we call it ARIA, Atal Ranking on Institutional Innovation Achievements, we are actually asking some similar questions. Okay. For example, what kind of innovative courses you are doing? Okay. I will tell you a very innovative course which we have started, which we call it as an MBA in Innovation, Entrepreneurship and Venture Development. It is a naam to conventional MBA hai. But when we spoke to large number of students who were keen on doing entrepreneurship, because youngsters mein abhi wo buzz hai, but they were not allowed to do that by their spouses or by their girlfriends or boyfriends. वो बोलते हैं कि ये क्यों मगजमारी करनी है तुमको? Entrepreneurship is a 48 hours job a day. So why you want to get into this rigmarole? Parents were not interested. Parents बोले इतना पढ़ाई किया, अभी तू जॉब कर, पैसा वापस कर, शादी कर, मॉल में घूम, Saturday, Sunday को. So we said we have to do something to solve this problem. So we started this incubator-based program. It's not a classroom-based program. Only 30% is classroom. But under the garb of this MBA, people actually pursue entrepreneurship. So they join as a team, they join with an idea, startup idea. और वो 2 साल उसी पे काम करते हैं. तो लोग बाहर लोगों को बोलते कि हम MBA कर रहे हैं. पेरेंट्स सोसाइटी में बोलते हैं मेरा बच्चा MBA कर रहा है. But under the garb of that MBA, they are actually doing entrepreneurship. Okay, so what I'm trying to say here is that we have to come up with newer ways of pedagogy, newer kind of courses, and through ARIA mechanism, we are actually trying to make that happen. And this will actually further help us in democratizing the concepts of innovation, entrepreneurship across the educational institute, and it will result eventually in equity, as you were talking about.
Thank you.
I hope I have answered your question.
Yeah, thank you, sir. So straight away going to Shri Manish Jain. My next question is for Mr. Manish Jain. The question asked is, sir, we have witnessed many of your workshops where you make students investigate the science behind simple toys with the aim that students take innovation to the next level. At times teachers find it very difficult to balance or integrate a theoretical way of learning with the practical solution. You yourself being a teacher and an innovator, what tips would you like to give to our teachers so as to create a generation of innovators? Over to you, sir.
I think बहुत ही अच्छा और मुश्किल सवाल है कि और आप सब लोग, सभी शिक्षक लोग उससे गुजरते हैं कि यार हमें तो प्रिंसिपल बोल रही है आप ये खत्म करो, अक्टूबर तक पूरा कोर्स खत्म करना है और आप हमें बोल रहे हो ये कागज से खिलौने बनवाओ. नो, एंड आई थिंक आई कैन नॉट गिव दैट आंसर. दैट इज समथिंग दैट एवरी टीचर हैज टू सॉर्ट ऑफ थिंक. बट मैं थोड़ी सी ये कहूंगा कि ये सब चीजों की कितनी मात्रा करनी है वो आपको ही निर्धारित करने का. खिचड़ी में नमक के बराबर, दाल में नमक के बराबर. दाल में नमक ज्यादा हो जाए, मतलब यू हैव टू बैलेंस हाउ मच सॉल्ट. इट हैज टू बी लाइक अ सॉल्ट. जैसे बच्चों को मुझे याद है बचपन में कराते थे मुगली घुट्टी 555. आई डोंट नो इफ यू गाइज रिमेंबर, यू गाइज मस्ट बी यंग. बट वो घुट्टी के समान डालना जरूरी है. आपने घुट्टी घुट्टी पिला दी तो गड़बड़ हो जाएगी, पॉटी लग जाएगी. सो इट हैज टू बी इन दैट, एंड दैट सेंस आई कैन नॉट टेल. आई डोंट नो हाउ इल योर क्लासेस और हाउ हेल्दी योर क्लासेस, बट आई थिंक इट इज एक्चुअली इंपॉर्टेंट. जरूरी है खिचड़ी के साथ ये चीजें देनी और करानी जरूरी है. किस मात्रा में करनी है, कब करनी है, उसका निर्धारण सीबीएसई को भी नहीं करना चाहिए, मुझे भी नहीं करना चाहिए, एमओई को भी नहीं करना चाहिए. दिस इज व्हाट आई ट्रूली बिलीव. होना चाहिए, बट आप कब करें नहीं करें वो आपकी जिम्मेदारी है. आखिर सर है आपका, बोलते ना ये आखिर सर है आपका. वो एक ऐड आता था किसी जमाने में
हेलमेट का.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. I think we're running a little short of time, so my last questions to
Meena, I would
Professor
like to
Pant.
add here.
Yeah, please,
If
sir.
possible, but I know 30 seconds only.
Yeah.
By giving you an example, okay? For example, if a teacher is teaching World War I or World War II, okay, it's a very, very difficult, means not a difficult, theoretical chapter in a sense, right? Can teacher actually create a game around where some becomes some student becomes part of Allied forces, some become part of Nazi, means German forces, and actually they work on how they can counter and rework entire strategy, and that will actually help cover कि किसने कहाँ अटैक किया, किसने कहाँ अटैक किया, क्या किया, मैं बंकर्स कहाँ बनाऊं, मैं ये कहाँ बनाऊं. So these kind of innovative thought processes we really need to push, you know, in subjects like history and geography, which became sometimes extremely boring, and suddenly they will become very interesting.
That's right.
तो क्योंकि मुझे लगता है मुझे भी 2 मिनट में ये कहानी जरूरी सुनानी चाहिए मितू जी, मीनू जी, क्योंकि ये जो अभय ने बात करी है ना बहुत जरूरी है. ये अगर ये जो सब्जेक्ट्स को हम ब्रेक कर देते हैं ना, उसमें गड़बड़ है या उसको थोड़ा सोचना पड़ेगा. काम आसान नहीं है, मुश्किल है. आपको जब आप इस कमरे में 35 अरुणा बोल रहे थे 1 करोड़ लोग हैं, आज की तारीख में 50 करोड़ 100 में से इसलिए जिंदा है क्योंकि एक आदमी पैदा हुआ जिसका नाम था फ्रिट्ज हेबर. उसने हवा से नाइट्रोजन और हाइड्रोजन को इकट्ठा करके दबा दिया, यूरिया बन गई. इसके कारण धरती इतना खाना उगा पाती है जिसके कारण हम लोग जिंदा हैं. सेम पर्सन गॉट द नोबेल प्राइज इन 1937 फॉर डिस्कवरिंग यूरिया. सेम पर्सन वर्कड ऑन creating nerve gas which was used to kill 6 million Jews in the Second World War. His wife and son committed suicide. And this is the same person who did chemistry. Absolutely wonderful, whatever. But when I'm talking about Haber's process in class, if I have this story, now science becomes something more human. It is not out there. अब जो अभय चर्चा कर रहे थे वो रेलेवेंट हो जाती है. तो अब ये कहानियों के माध्यम से जिनका बहुत बड़ा रोल है, कॉन्टेक्स्ट स्थापित होता है और बच्चों की फिर रुचि बनती है. So somewhere we'll have to also look at.
Absolutely right, Jain sir. So I think we are running short of time. I would like to ask the last question of the session from Professor Pant. So this is a question which has been asked by one of my fellow principal. She says the collaborative technologies such smart classes with augmented reality enable what is called blended learning has come a long way during this pandemic. How this can be viewed as a milestone achieved in inculcating a culture of self-learning, learning from learning or meta-learning. Over to you, sir.
तो ये तो बड़ा एकेडमिक सा सवाल है, पर पहले जो मनीष कहानी कह रहे थे वो कहानी को आगे बढ़ाना है. उन्होंने कहा फ्रिट्ज हाबर ने ये किया. उसके पहले मैल्थस ने कहा था हम सब भूखे मर जाएंगे. मैल्थस ने पूरा मैथमेटिक्स लगा के प्रूव किया था कि हम सब लोग भूखे मर जाएंगे क्योंकि लैंड इज नॉट इंक्रीजिंग ज्योमेट्रिकली, पॉपुलेशन इज इंक्रीजिंग ज्योमेट्रिकली. तो फ्रिट्ज हाबर ने जब ये करा कि फिक्सेशन ऑफ नाइट्रोजन वो कर देंगे तो उससे फिर उन्होंने नर्व गैस से लोगों को मार भी दिया ताकि दोनों काम पूरे हो जाए. So this thing what is being talked about is what was just said, education in the metaverse. Education in the metaverse is talking about putting AR, VR, everything together and creating something, because जो हमारा टारगेट है that is for education to reach out to everybody. पहले ऐसा नहीं था, पहले it was very exclusive. In fact, there was no such thing as classroom. Individual teachers taught. बल्कि मेरे पास एक बार किसी का आया था, गुड़गांव में नया नया आया हूँ, which school is good and money is no consideration. I said, if money is no consideration, get individual tutors for everybody. So ये बेंजामिन ब्लूम ने कहा है बहुत पहले कि the best education is a one-on-one education between an eager learner and an empathetic teacher. Because you cannot do this one-on-one on a mass scale, तब उन्होंने वो 2 sigma problem करा था कि can you do mass scale which is as good as one-on-one learning. It is called the 2 sigma problem, and today we believe with AI and personalized learning and all this data analytics, etc., we can achieve that. So this is the future that we are talking about, data-driven, personalized learning. Also, not only अभी हम personalization कहते हैं, curriculum same है, हर एक को सिखा दिया, वो जरूरी नहीं है. You have to educate a person to be able to be the best version of himself and continuously improvement. That is why we are talking of lifelong learning. Because अभी जो सारा neuroscience में नई neuroplasticity कहती है, वो बिल्कुल और कहती है. हम IIT में आने नहीं देते किसी को जिसको मैथ्स नहीं आती है. कोई माने नहीं है, मैथ्स बाद में सीख लेगा जब जरूरत पड़ेगी, और कंप्यूटर से करा लेगा. कॉन्ट्रैक्ट वॉल्फ्रम यही कहता है, मैथ्स इज नॉट अबाउट कैलकुलेटिंग, मैथ्स इज अबाउट एब्स्ट्रैक्शन, ब्यूटी, एटसेट्रा. सो डूइंग मैथ्स विद अ कंप्यूटर and doing maths in your head are completely different things.
So we are heading for interdisciplinary learning. Thank you, sir, for answering.
Yeah, learning, I mean, almost
has
like
to be interdisciplinary.
learning what you want, when you want, but you have to make the effort to learn.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
So I think we are bang on time. So before we conclude this session, so I take this opportunity to propose a vote of thanks. So we thank all the panelists, Dr. Abhay Jere, Shri Manish Jain, Professor M.M. Pant, for their esteemed presence and sharing their valuable insight on how to ideate, create, and innovate. I am thankful to Dr. Anup Singh for the smooth conduct of this session. I am sure today's session has been a wonderful learning experience for all of us. On this note, I thank you all for connecting with us. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you all for joining. I'm highly apologetic because we could not give you proper time, and excellent feedback pouring in from all school leaders that we want separate sessions from each speaker. So in future, I would be inviting all of you. Thank you all for sparing your valuable time. Thank you, Dr. Arnav. Thank you, Mrs. Minu Tiwari. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Yeah.
आप सभी माननीयों का आभार.